Hi students, this video is going to be about adding and subtracting mixed numbers. This is kind of a challenging skill, so rally your forces, okay? All right, here we go. First, your title, Adding and Subtracting Mixed Numbers. Oops. Remember, you can always pause the video if I'm going too fast. It's nice when it's on video because you can do that easily. Versus in the classroom, you can't really slow me down, right? A little bit maybe. All right, so there's a couple of things you really need to know in order to be successful with this. First is anytime you're adding or subtracting any type of fractions, including mixed numbers, you have to have matching denominators. And if you don't have matching denominators, then you have to do the work of getting them. So I know it's challenging. That's just the way some things are, right? So this is a key. This is a key part of adding and subtracting fractions is they have to have those matching denominators. The other thing is you really need to know that a number like, for example, 3 1/4, that is 3 wholes and 1/4, 3 whole whatevers. And so it could be rewritten as 1/4, 4/4. That's a whole group of fourths, and a second whole group of fourths, and a third whole group of fourths, and your fractional part. Because sometimes we do have to regroup with fractions in order to work with them. We have to rename them, and so we've got to understand the way it works so that we can break them up if we need to and borrow from a whole as needed. So 3/4 is made up of 3 whole groups of fourth and 1/4. That's just another way of looking at it. It is the same thing. So, and flexibly you could also think of it. This is what we mean by regrouping from the whole, is you know that 3 1/4, you could just take away one of those groups of 4, borrowing from the whole. The whole would be 2, and then you'd have 4/4 plus your extra fourth, 2 5/4. So that's what we mean when we're borrowing from the whole. You take a whole group of whatever your denominator is, fourths, you take it away from the whole number, and then you use it as pieces instead of whole numbers. All right, so let's take a look at the steps. Step 1, we're going to do the steps first, and then we'll do an example with addition and an example with subtraction. Step 1 is write the problem vertically. This just helps with organization. So write the problem vertically and neatly so that you can be successful in solving it. Step 2 is check for matching denominators. If they don't match, get to work. You have to change them so that they do match using equivalent fractions, right? You have to use equivalent fractions, which you do know how to do. We won't do a lesson on it because you already have a lesson on it, right? Step 3, add or subtract your fractional parts first. You might need to regroup or borrow from the whole if you're subtracting. So let's write that. You might need to regroup like I did up here. Another way of thinking of that is borrow from the whole. And sometimes you have to borrow in subtraction if you don't have enough. Step 4, once you've done the fractional parts, because remember a mixed number has whole number and fractional parts. So you're going to add or subtract the fractional parts first. You might need to regroup like I showed here during subtraction. And then the next step is to add or subtract the whole numbers. Once you've added or subtracted the numbers, you might need to adjust your answer if it's not in standard form. And I'll just show what I mean by that. So this fraction, this mixed number we started with, 3 1/4, that's a normal mixed number. It's in standard form, it makes sense, it's familiar. You have 3 wholes and 1/4, that's fine. But you might end up with an answer like this, 4 11/10, and that's not quite in standard form, right? Because it's a mixed number, but then it's also an improper fraction. That's not a standard form. We also sometimes need that form to do the subtraction, but we don't want our answers in that form. So you can see there's a whole group of tenths inside that 4, right? So you can rename it as 5 1/10. Because you take the 10/10 that's in your pieces and you call that a new whole, and then you just have the extra piece. Another way of looking at it, if you need to, is you can think, well, it's like 4, and then your 10/10 makes a whole, right? And then you have your extra 1/10. So if you need to think of this step along the way, you can. Remember, 10/10 is just another way of saying 1 whole. So 4 plus a whole group of tenths, and then your extra piece gives you 5 1/10. So if your answer is not in standard form, you've got to make the adjustment to put it into standard form. Alrighty, we're going to do a couple of examples. We're just going to do them step by step. We'll do an addition one and a subtraction one. I think I'll have space for both. So let's call this practice. And let's take a look. So we're going to start with an addition one. So you have 3 1/2 plus 2 3/4. Step 1, we're going to write it vertically, right? 3 1/2 plus 2 3/4. You need to keep it organized and have a space between, otherwise it becomes very confusing. Step 2 is to check and see that the denominators match. In this case, they do not, so we need to make that adjustment. We know how to do equivalent fractions, right? Do I need to change one of them or both of them? Just one. I can change the half into fourths. So 2 3/4 is going to stay the same. I'm going to have to change 3 1/2 into fourths. The whole number stays the same. You don't change the whole number. And then I'm going to change 1/2 into fourths. So I'm just going to think 1/2, I'll put a little think bubble, 1/2 times what gave me fourths? Times 2, right? 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2. So 3 1/2 equals the same thing as 3 2/4. That was step 2. Step 3, add or subtract the fractional parts. 2/4 plus 3/4 is 5/4. Step 4, add or subtract the whole numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5. Step 5 is to look at my answer and see if it's in standard form. This one is not, because I have 5/4 as my fractional part, and that's an improper fraction. So I'm going to take 4/4, and that's going to become an additional whole to go with my whole number, and then I'm going to have 1/4 left over. So that gives me 6 and 1/4. And that's my final answer. Let's do a subtraction one. Let's start with, I'll put a little divider there. 9 1/8 minus 3 3/4. Step 1, write it vertically. Go ahead and do that. 9 1/8, nice and neat, minus 3 3/4. Keep it neat. Step 2, check for matching denominators. Do they match? They do not. Do I have to change one of them or both of them? Just one of them, because I can teach those fourths to be eighths, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 9 1/8 can stay the same. The whole number is going to stay the same, but I'm going to change the fraction into eighths. I'll put my little think bubble there to figure out how to do that. 4 times 2 gives me 8, or 8 divided by 4 is 2. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top for equivalent fractions. 3 times 2 is 6. Remember, during this whole process, I'm just ignoring the whole number because it does not need to change. Only the fractional part needs to change. Step 3 is to do the subtraction, just the fractional parts. 1/8 minus 6/8, no way, can't do that. I need to borrow from the whole up here because I can't take 6 pieces away if I only have one piece. Just like in other math, sometimes you have to go to the bigger part and borrow. So I'm going to take 1 away from the 9, and it's going to become 8. And the 1 that I took away is now a whole group of 8s, right? Because that equals 1 whole. Right? And then I still have my other extra 8th. So I can rewrite that by connecting these two into one group of wholes. So now I have 9 and 1/8. This middle step, I show it so that you guys will understand what's going on when you regroup from the whole. Excuse me, 8. No. Miss Becky. 8 and 9/8. Sorry, I made a mistake. Now I'm going to connect these pieces, right? Sorry about that. I don't want to remake the whole video because of that error. Let's just rethink that. Because I'm borrowing from the whole, now I have 8 as my whole. And then I'm going to connect all the pieces I just created. 8/8 plus another one is 9/8. The other fraction does not change. It stays the same, minus 3 and 6/8. So I did have to borrow from the whole. That's the way I did it. That's the result that I got when I borrowed from the whole. Now I can do the subtraction of parts. 9/8 minus 6/8 is 3/8. 8. Now I can do step 4, subtract the whole numbers. 8 minus 3 is 5. 5 and 3/8. And I can check my answer. I don't need to make any adjustments to my answer. It's good just like it is. That is my final answer. Alrighty, I know it's a lot of work. If you think it's a lot of work, you're not wrong. We have these steps, and you really do have to follow them in order to be successful. You can rewatch this video, of course, as many times as needed. You can also source the other YouTube video that I posted for you in Classroom. Bueno, bye.